You cannot improve what you cannot measure. Hey everyone, my name is Pete Kim, CEO and co-founder of Mighty Hive and executive director at S4 Capital.
Hi, my name's Amy Lanzi. I am the commerce practice lead for North America for Publicis Group.
Today, we're going to be discussing how the idea of maximizing your measurement has shifted under recent times from an agency perspective. As we all struggle as an industry and strive as an industry to get better, how do you know if your experiment was actually worthwhile if you can't measure the delta between status quo and the new? One of my favorite phrases here is that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And I think that the ability to measure is just that, the ability to see.
So I can't agree more. I think measurement is so important, obviously, particularly given how much change we have just all gone through in the last 5 months and will continue to go through. We've fast forwarded in e-commerce 5 months and 5 years. And there's some simple questions that we need to be always on, having more of a commerce mindset. Would we have gotten the sale anyway is my favorite one to think about. Some of the things we really focus on is not only measuring, but are we measuring the right KPIs, not just legacy KPIs that might be in place. And there's so much change in the space, to Pete's point, especially with consumers being able to shop in any way that they want to. You have to have an agile measurement plan that is much more dynamic. I think measurement tends to be more static in nature, or has been in the past, where we want to be able to measure daily, minute by minute, to be able to make the right message and investment shifts.
And there's not one customer, there's billions, and they're all unique in their own way. And so having the right measurement in place just allows you to zero in on that. And we talk about things like ROAS, and we talk about things like results and measurement and things like that. But we always have to remember that at the end of the day, the customer is the ultimate goal here. And the data is literally the representation of the customer. And if you don't have access to it, if you can't measure it, then you're not talking to the customer. You're just pushing buttons somewhere and hoping things go well. If you really aren't measuring correctly, then you miss the silent majority, right? And the only people that you pay attention to are the squeaky wheels, who may be much more vocal, but ultimately are a tiny percentage of who you're trying to reach. And so really what you need to do is to turn on the lights, to be able to see and to be able to get closer to the customers, some of whom maybe aren't going to be quite so vocal in how but nonetheless are going to be the folks that you want to reach because they are your customers, or at least the majority of them.
So Pete, you're absolutely correct. Very much, how are we using measurement to capture our most important customers, but then also be able to find the ones we want to either recruit or retain. So you can, do certain things, and it's fairly obvious if you're getting the squeaky wheels, to your point. But it's really important to think about, key questions that the entire organization galvanizes around. So, one of the things I think is also as interesting in measurement is there's a lot of complexity for no reason. So when you sort of make it something that you say, look, there's one place we're all going to look at. There's a couple pieces of data we're going to be really focused on, but also be able to simplify it to say, how do we drive the business versus how do we get to the next KPI that the whole industry is talking about?
Here's the thing. If you are really going to do measurements on advertising effectiveness, here's what you need. You need a list of people who bought something. You need a list of people who saw an ad, and you need the means to join those data set into a single analyzable whole. And then you need some smart people to just look for patterns. And we are right now on the cusp of being able to do this at scale, which is so amazing.
I mean, we come at it both ways. So, for example, we have a very simple now and next framework when we think about measurement as the starting point of a conversation. That we have, of course, the systems in place to be able to support that measurement vision. Then we can customize that based on the client problem. So one of our clients really wanted to understand, if I invest in all of these different retail media partners, how do I know I'm not either just subsidizing the same purchase that would have happened in another retailer? Is it driving incrementality? And how do I also not just give all my dollars to the retailers because they're asking? And this client is a full Google tech stack. So we built out a opportunity to essentially, in a privacy compliant way, commingle the data. So it was a really interesting process where we learned quite a bit, and also were able to highlight capabilities that both the retailer needed to build as well as this client in particular.
From my end, the ability to realize that potential is oftentimes just as much about working with the clients as about adjusting the knobs and dials in the particular product itself. You don't want 100 different reports. You want one. And so you really have to figure out what are the things that you need to do to get down to that solution and to really figure out how to get it done. And that is where a great services partner comes in, right? To really unlock the potential of the technology.
So for 2021, the key takeaway, the key focus is around digital resiliency and being able to move at the pace of the consumer, as we've been talking about, is very important. So how are we not only investing in campaigns, but also changing those on the fly, whether it's messaging or it's our investment strategy? 2021 broadly is a year that is going to be a battleground in terms of budgets. So it is very important as you're thinking about your media investments that you are bringing all the different parties in an organization together at one table to be able to prioritize your investments to be able to win in the next year.
One final point here is that this is absolutely necessary for succeeding in a new generation of business, of commerce. And there are, I think everybody has seen the various predictions that half of the Fortune 500 are going to turn over in the next 10 years or 20 years or, whatever the case may be. And I think one of the things that are really going to be separators between the folks who do make it and the folks who don't are going to be the institutional will, the agility, and the skill to really reorganize their entire businesses around the consumer.
And the only way to do that is to be able to build out your own CDP. But then also that allows us, as we think about measurement, to move into our ability to understand how we are creating the right customer relationships, moving into loyalty, and where LTV becomes a much, much more, so when we talk about our now next measurement framework, the next is not only understanding better KPIs outside of ROAS, but also understanding how we can get to LTV. You can only get there when you have a much stronger handle on your own customer and their data.
If I were to give one piece of advice on the topic of data and measurement, it would be this: have a plan. Most people today just aren't, really moving forward with a comprehensive approach. You need to have a vision in mind, you need to have a destination in mind, and you need to have a plan to get there.
Totally agree. You absolutely have to have the tools and technology so that as you're building out measurement, you are able to harness all of that and see it in real time. But the first order of business is to be able to be focused on the single consumer that you really believe you can drive growth with.